legislative work for the day, roll call votes anyway, as they voted and approved 3 judicial nominations. We take you now live to the Senate floor here on C-SPAN 2.
to officiate the quorum.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak up to 20 minutes on as if in morning business.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this chamber considered trade measures this week for the first time in about 4 years. First, and most importantly, the bipartisan currency measure passed by an overwhelming majority, 63 to 35. This action on China's currency is long overdue. This legislation, I was the prime sponsor of it. The major co-sponsors, we had co-sponsors in both political parties. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Republican, Chuck Schumer, New York, Debbie Stabenow, Michigan, Democrat, Chuck Schumer, Democrat, Jeff Sessions, Republican from Alabama, Olympia Snowe, Republican from Maine, Susan Collins, Republican from Maine, Kay Hagan, Democrat from North Carolina, Bob Casey, Democrat from Pennsylvania. So this was a strong bipartisan bill. My junior senator, Rob Portman, Republican from Ohio, former trade ambassador, former trade representative under President Bush, supported the legislation. And basically works this way, that we know the kind of job loss in places in Duluth, Minnesota, or Toledo, Ohio, where because China cheats, pure and simple, they cheat. They depreciate or underappreciate their currency, making it a weaker RMB, if you will. The RMB is the name of their currency term. And what that does is this. When a company in Dayton, Ohio, or Youngstown, Ohio, sells a product into the Chinese market that the people of Xi'an or Wuhan, China, might consider buying, this company is faced with a 25 to 30 to 35% currency tax or currency tariff, making the product more expensive, making it much harder for the U.S. company to sell the product to China. At the same time, going back the other way, the company in China, or the government in some cases, selling into the U.S. market gets a 25, 30, 35% subsidy, making it so much easier to sell. Now, I'll give you one perfect example, a regrettable example. A company about 20 miles from where I live in Brunswick, Ohio, a company owned by the Bennett brothers, whom I met fairly recently in Cleveland. This company, 25 miles outside Cleveland, is called Automation Tool and Die, and the Bennett brothers had $1 million sale order that they thought they were about to fill, and at the last minute, a Chinese company came in and underpriced them by 20%. That was the currency subsidy that Chinese company had. What's fair about that? I learned today a paper company in Hamilton, Ohio, right smack in the middle of the home county and the home district of the Speaker of the House, announced its closing. One of the main factors was low-cost imports from China. When it comes to paper, here's what the Chinese do. They buy their paper, they buy their pulp in Brazil, they ship it from Brazil to Chinese paper mills, some sense across 2 oceans. They mill it, they ship it back to the United States, yet they underprice us. And even though labor is only 10% of the cost of paper production, they underprice us because apparently they subsidize water and energy and land and capital, plus they get this 25% currency subsidy. So our trade deficit with China, which has more than tripled in the last decade after China was let into the World Trade Organization, pledging to follow the rule of law, but breaking that pledge every day of the year, our trade deficit with China now $275 billion for the year, has risen through the economic food chain all the way to advanced technology products. Used to be made in China 10 years ago, similar to the presiding officer remembers growing up in Minnesota in the 50s and 60s. Made in Japan always meant something was cheap and sort of badly made. Well, made in China 10 years ago usually meant the cheapest products in the Znaczki kinds of products. Today, made in China, they've worked their way up the technology chain, so they compete with our wind turbine components, and they compete on all kinds of high-level kinds of goods. In addition to paper and steel and aluminum and glass and paper and cement and all the things that have created the middle class in my state for decades, we're competing with China for jobs in solar and wind and clean energy component manufacturing and in the auto supply chain. We can compete on productivity. We have skilled workers. We have world-class infrastructure, although God knows it needs renovation and modernization. But how do you compete against just an automatic across-the-board 25 to 30% subsidy? I thank my colleagues this week for voting for that legislation, 63, including the presiding officer's support, to defend manufacturing. It clearly took us, we need to pass that bill in the House of Representatives. The Speaker of the House has so far said he's not inclined to bring it up. I think that in the White House has so far not supported this legislation, but we know the kind of broad bipartisan support it has and how important it is so that we can begin to re-energize our manufacturing in this country. At the same time, Mr. President, we took a step back this week after the China trade currency bill, which was very progressive, important legislation for our manufacturing. We took a step back by passing trade deals with Colombia and South Korea and Panama that will do more harm than good. People have heard, it's really kind of amazing, Mr. President, the probably too often used quote from Einstein where he said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is exactly what's happened in trade agreements. Go back 20 years, in 18 years, 1993, President Clinton, mimicking President Bush, who had negotiated the agreement, said the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, would create 200,000 jobs in our country quickly. Well, we've lost 600,000 net jobs because of NAFTA. That same model of NAFTA with investor-state relations and with investor-state provisions and other things gave rise to the Central American Free Trade Agreement and other trade agreements that every time they cost us jobs, every time the administration, either party, doesn't matter, promises these trade agreements will create jobs, they never do. And this body, again, Korea, Colombia, Panama, a majority of senators, a strong majority of senators, again, bought that line that, hey, if this is going to create jobs, and it never does. The same promises, businesses promise jobs from increased exports. Yet they only talk about half of it. They say, well, yeah, NAFTA, CAFTA, Korea Free Trade Agreement, Panama Free Trade Agreement, Colombia Free Trade Agreement, they're going to mean more exports. Well, talking only about exports is like telling a baseball score and only reporting half of the sports score. For instance, yesterday, I mean, the season obviously mercifully ended for the presiding officer's home team, but it's like saying yesterday the Twins scored 8 runs. Well, good for them, but the Indians scored 12, but they only told you about the Twins' runs. I mean, you don't report baseball scores that way. You report scores by Twins got 8, the Indians won 12-8, or the Tigers won 3-2. Well, with trade, the people that support these trade agreements always say, well, it's increasing exports. Well, maybe it is, but imports are increasing much more dramatically. And President Bush once said that $1 billion in trade surplus or trade deficit translated into 13,000 jobs. So if you have $1 billion trade deficit, if you're selling more than you're buying, then that creates 13,000 jobs. If you're buying more than you're selling, if you have $1 billion trade deficit, you lose 13,000 jobs. Well, you know what our trade deficit is? It's in the range of $600 billion. Just do the math. And each time we pass one of these trade agreements, Mr. President, each time, and it'll probably happen with Korea and Colombia and Panama, each time we do it, trade deficit rises. Our trade deficit with China has gone up more than triple. Our trade, before NAFTA, we had a trade surplus with Mexico and a small trade deficit with Canada. After NAFTA, which was a trade agreement among the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, the trade deficit with Canada exploded. The trade deficit with China went from a surplus to a deficit. We know this isn't working. We have a serious jobs crisis in our hands. 14 million people out of work. We hear senators talking about that all the time. Another 15 million unemployed or underemployed or have stopped searching for work. The economy must add at least 150,000 new jobs each month simply to keep up with population growth. So what do? We add a Korea agreement, a Colombia agreement, a Peru agreement, none of which will create jobs. I mean, they just never do. They promise them, but they never do. That's because these trade agreements don't tell the whole story about how our trade agenda can actually create jobs. The right trade, I want trade, I want more trade. I think the American people want more trade, but the American people know these trade agreements don't serve us as a nation. It's impossible, Mr. President, I know you hear this in Duluth, you hear it in Rochester, you hear it in Minneapolis, I hear it in Cincinnati, I hear it in Columbus, I hear it in Zanesville, When unemployment is far too high, our constituents demand that Washington do its job and help folks get back to work. And we tried to do that this week on another issue, and that was the President's jobs bill. And when I heard Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, say, and it's almost a direct quote, my #1 goal in 2011 and 12 is to make sure Barack Obama doesn't get reelected. I've never heard a political party leader, a leader in the United States Senate, to my knowledge in history, ever say that was their #1 goal. Of course he's going to be for his opponent. Of course the presiding officer and I will support Barack Obama. I mean, that's what happens in politics. But to hear the leader of one political party say, my #1 goal is to defeat the sitting president of the United States, and then he rounds his troops up to vote no against any job creation bill President Obama offers. In fact, he didn't just vote no against this bill and get every Republican to do that. He said, and led his Republican troops, if you will, to say, no, we're not even going to let it come to the floor and be debated. Senator Cardin was speaking today earlier on the floor, and I was presiding, and he was just incredulous in many ways that the leader of one party would say, on the jobs bill, of all things, would say, we're not even going to allow it to come to the floor to debate and to offer amendments. Senator Cardin had several amendments I thought sounded like a good idea. A lot of us have amendments to the jobs bill, and we wanted a chance to offer them. Yet Republicans, because of this dysfunctional rule, you have to have 60 votes to even put a bill up for debate, the Republicans say, no, we're not even going to debate it. Well, let me take one part of that bill that's particularly important, Mr. President. The average U.S. public school building is 40 years old. Many are older, some are newer than that. The average U.S. public school building is 40 years old. Now, I know what I preach to my kids. I know what my neighbors preach. I know what we preach as politicians. I know what almost everybody says in this country, and that is we say to the pages here, people that are 15, 16 years old, 17 years old, we say to our children, education is the most important thing for you to pursue, the most important thing in our country. Then what do? We send them to crumbling old school buildings that are not easy places in which to learn. So, Mr. President, it's pretty clear that when the average school building is 40 years old, that it's going to cost real money to fix them up. Conservative estimates suggest it would cost $270 billion to renovate these schools, to maintain them, to repair them. Yet with a slowly recovering economy, we know that too many school districts have been forced to cut budgets and lay off teachers, let alone make improvements to our schools. I introduced the Fix America's Schools today, the FAST Act, that would help localities make critical repairs to schools, support more than 12,000 jobs in Ohio. I introduced that bill a few weeks ago, soon after the President was at Fort Hays Public High School in Columbus, Ohio, the state capital of my state, in the central part of the state. And the President talked about the FAST Act, talked about how we should do school renovation as part of his jobs bill. I would plead with my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle, the same colleagues that worked with me bipartisanly to pass the biggest bipartisan jobs bill, the China currency bill of this session. I would plead with them to work on us, at least if they won't go overall and let us debate the jobs bill as a whole, at least let us pass the Fix America Schools today, the FAST Act. It will make the kind of repairs, it will create jobs today because workers will rebuild these schools and renovate them. It will create jobs in manufacturing as companies all over my state that make steel, that make glass, that make cement, that make brick will they'll go to work to make these products, and it will lay the groundwork for prosperity. We know that our country in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, the United States of America built infrastructure the likes of which the world had never seen. That's why we had the kind of prosperity in this country when the presiding officer was in high school and college, and I was in high school and college, and a young adult. We had the kind of prosperity brought about because we had the best infrastructure in the world. We've got to rebuild that infrastructure. We've got to create the opportunity for young people that infrastructure, that modernized infrastructure will do. We need to pass the FAST Act. It will make such a difference for our country in the years ahead. Mr. President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Aye.